Hello.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, everyone.
Greetings, all.
Hey, everyone.
Sorry, James and I are frequently going to be just a few minutes late. I don't know if you already said.
I'm gonna get just more ruthless with cutting off this meeting before this one, and just say we've got to go by. It's our ticket triage meeting. We've always got lots of tickets to go through, and conversations always get technical, so we've got to try and cut them short. That's fine.
I will say that Terra Grunt sync up is right before this meeting, so I will also have might show up a couple minutes late, but I will have active, a conversation done with the Terra Grunt developers, specifically on OpenTofu integration, right before I come to that.
I think RL said he's not going to be here today. Roger's also not, and I don't think his intern is going to has time for this meeting. So I think this is everyone. I'm happy to present and take notes today if that works. I think I've done that a little bit. Let's see. Get prepared to share the screen. Okay, OpenTofu.org, TSC, notes from last time, and agenda. Okay. So, first thing we do, update on action items from last meeting, take a quick look through. Let's see. James will open an issue and clarify future of DynamoDB locks for S3 backend. How's that going?
It is on my to-do list. I haven't got around to that yet.
Okay, so
still another action item for me to do.
Open up some notes. I just lost my notes.
Just to clarify for others, this is the fact that we will not be deprecating DynamoDB for state locking, whilst Terraform will be.
Okay. And the other one is Igor will handle updating the TSC member list.
Yeah. Still in to-do list. I'll probably do it this week.
Okay. Sounds good.
Maybe I don't know.
Okay. Topics to discuss. 111 planning. Let's see. So I guess we can go over the current state of this.
Has anything changed since last week? I don't believe so.
I think we moved the milestone to effectively in progress because we've been picking issues off it for a while. So it's still marked as planning. Is there anything else we need to do planning-wise for 111, or are we just happy locking this in and going from there? I think we had talked about keeping this to be a little bit of a smaller release to keep things moving and taking some time to try to plan some larger issues, which I think is represented by the number of open RFCs that are active.
Can we add the Azure state locking or encryption, the Azure encryption to this planning, please?
Yep.
I've got it, Christian. You carry
Okay,
on with
thanks.
everything else.
Yep. Yeah. That's the...
Am I missing? Yes, I was. So ephemeral resources and write-only arguments are there. Does that include ephemeral variables?
Yes. Yep, that is the top issue. That's what the majority of the time is being spent on.
Which an initial version is actually going to get merged into main. Hopefully this week we can maybe start shipping some nightly builds and play around with things. Should be good.
So RFC is going in for this one. This one is just a doc change. This one is actually going to be fixed as part of the ephemeral stuff. I had that conversation with Andre earlier today because they both kind of touch the apply now needs to accept variable arguments, but it already sort of did in a weird way. This is just follow up from the last release. This is tying on to what Lawrence is working on. This is documentation, but very critical documentation. So I think someone on the core team is just going to take a week and just bisect a bunch of the code. This one is just there's one small PR lingering that's just about to be merged. And this one I've been assigned, but anyone else on the core team might jump onto this. So we still this is 1.11 planning, but I think we're actually, given that we're thinking about putting out an alpha for the ephemeral stuff within the next few weeks, fingers crossed, that puts us on track to get most of this wrapped up. This one hasn't started, but the initial started in. The RFC is still in progress, but he is doing a proof of concept at the same time. And I think from his initial reports, this looks to be a relatively straightforward thing to do. I'd actually recommend people take a look at his RFC when that PR opens, I think later this week. He found a really cool way of handling this pretty seamlessly. So migrating from specifying count with a ternary into enabled, disabled. I think if we can figure out how to do that seamlessly, we'll make it a really nice feature. But from the technical steering point of view, I think I'm happy just saying this is 1.11.0 without planning. We can still add things to it if, like this, just historically, we've said these are the things that are kind of on the critical path for 1.11. But other people, like, we're not going to refuse other community PRs as we're going into this. This is what we want to, from the core team or from the maintainer perspective, this is what we kind of want to be focusing on.
So, Christian,
Yeah.
I was talking to Dio earlier this week about the RSC for conditional resources.
Yeah.
I did mention the having a good story regarding the transition from supporting it to not supporting it. So you have a module that's not using a conditional resource to switching to conditional resource. And I think a higher level thing that needs to be kept in mind with respect to that is how these features are being marketed. So are we identifying the concrete value adds early on, at this stage of our planning for releases, and figuring out what's the announcement going to look like for the what do OpenTofu users get to do now as of this release that they want last release?
I think. Sorry, James, you were.
Yeah, I was going to say from a product and a marketing point of view, I think ephemeral is going to definitely be our big ticket value, and then things like this conditional single instance resources very much proving that we're improving the quality of life. There definitely is a value in this, very similar to people using provider for each. I don't think everybody is going to change over immediately. But I think that is the case with the Terraform and OpenTofu ecosystem in general. People are very happy with what they have, but they care more about greenfield. So when we're talking about writing this, we should be... I don't think the story is simplifying things for module authors. I think it's for greenfield projects or people who are writing new OpenTofu code. They can use ephemeral and conditional instance resources, and they shouldn't go back and clean up some code with everything. I think it's the same as if someone commented on my code, you should replace this for each with a different type of loop. I'd get frustrated going, oh, you can just do an if instead of a for each. But yeah, we should definitely be thinking about the value of these things. I do think 110 was a lot bigger than 111 will be. Maybe we need to add another medium ticket item alongside the single instance conditional resources.
I think this Azure Key Vault, assuming we don't find any massive blockers in the other Azure work going on, which, given the reviews we've had so far, I don't think is likely. I think this is also a nice one saying, hey, we're continuing to improve state encryption as well. This has been a big miss for a while, and we avoided it because of the absolute tragedy that is the existing Azure backend in the OpenTofu code. And Lawrence has been doing a wonderful job cleaning that up and building something that is actually maintainable here.
Well, just to call it out, if I wasn't clear on the conditional resource, I think the value add to module authors, that's like, it depends on the implementation, I guess. But as of the release could say, as of 1.11, module authors do not have to have a breaking change when they convert a resource from non-conditional to conditional, like they do for count. That's like a big ticket.
Oh, that's true.
Thing that if you communicate that, OpenTofu is now a better tool for writing modules than Terraform.
I think that's a good angle. We should definitely have that as part of the blog post. Anything else on 1.11? Or are we ready to mark that as this is what the maintainers are focusing on, at least tentatively? Cool.
Thumbs up from everyone.
All right, taking that as consensus. All right. So that is 1.11.0 planning. So next time that'll just be 1.11.0 status, and hopefully a little bit shorter. All right, tossing it over to James.
CNCF onboarding. It looks like I'm putting this off constantly, but I will give you a rough idea of what's happening. I will pitch to the CNCF, hey, I'm going to announce it in our Slack. Can we migrate next Thursday or Friday? Is that okay?
Yeah,
and their response is, cool, let's set a date when we can do the migration. And I've had that 3 times, 4 times now. I sent them a message now, literally just giving dates. I'm being very firm. I'm saying I'm doing it. Be ready. And we will do it, and they should be ready. It's people problems and not technical problems. For people who are unaware, we are migrating from our OpenTofu community Slack over to the CNCF Slack. We will have at least one channel over there, OpenTofu, but we can add other channels in the future. That's the last thing. We are onboarded into the CNCF. Everything is fine there. It's just this is the one thing they'd like us to do.
Just out of my curiosity, so CNCF, we got into Sandbox, but then they have like also incubating and created projects. Like any what's our we'll just. I think the question is do we think about going to incubating, etc.? Like, what's the process? What's required? So we just we'll stay in the Sandbox, happy there. And I'm not sure the benefits of any of it. So other than some buzz and internet buzz. So
they have a big document somewhere that discusses the process from Sandbox to incubated. And I can't fully remember what the process is or what it would give us. Right now, the CNCF is supporting us in a lot of things that we do, and we're very thankful for that. But I don't think they're asking for much, and they might even ask for more if we become incubating, which might require a bit of an overhead. Maybe we should reconsider this in 6 months or so and just see what we get out of the first Sandbox.
The way how it's marketed is just incubating created products are stable and production ready. So I think when they initially created this model, it was Sandbox is for the new project. but technically OpenTofu is a not new project. It's
Hmm.
already kind of like in production and stable. So like this is why I'm kind of curious. At least I hope they won't require us to migrate to another CNCF Slack for incubating projects.
I don't think we will. I think
I'm just kidding.
we just have to hope that Slack doesn't change their pricing model again and want to push Slack AI on everyone and things like this. I think if there's going to be another move, it will be off Slack and onto something else, but as a large group along with the CNCF. And we won't be in that boat alone. So, we can talk to someone at the CNCF, get them to sell us on it, see what we get. But I agree, we're in a weird situation that it's not a greenfield project, we're a fork, so it's established and
Also, like
already.
the thinking I had in my mind is so like we need more people to adopt OpenTofu and more people to like believe that it's stable, production ready. So like that's another angle, which like, hey, it's incubating, so kind of like stable, production ready. So kind of like maybe this will like change the minds of some like other people who kind of like don't trust it yet. So like from this angle as well. I don't know.
So action item for next week for someone to have this conversation with the CNCF and give an overview next week.
Yeah.
James, can you do this? Because I think you're like in contact already with CNCF guys.
Sure.
Or like if you can do intros, I'm happy to do this. So up to you.
Yeah, I can do this. They have a system to book a meeting, and so I will just specifically about this, about understanding the benefits and event resources and stuff they offer, and I can get in touch with them. That's no problem. Would anyone else like to be involved in that?
I think not at this stage because we're just like exploring. But then if we will like believe that it's something that we want to do, then we can assign to people. So like it won't be only on you.
Okay. Sounds great.
So I have so that's everything that's on the agenda. I would like to ask a question that's related to the agenda for next week. So the way we've been doing this is just putting together the agenda as we're writing the one from the next week and assuming people will PR in additional items that they would like to discuss, which I think is reasonable. Anyone can open up a PR into the agenda for the next week. I've got a question about scope. We have a number of large architectural level OpenTofu RFCs that are starting to gain momentum. Do we want to look at those as a group during these TSC meetings and have those as agenda items when they're just about ready to go in? Do we want to look at them at an earlier stage, or is that something that we want to primarily handle offline?
My opinion is that all TSC members should be encouraged to spend some time commenting on RFCs. And they should be part of the RFC process and not the TSC process.
Seems to me like this call is a good one for making decisions, not necessarily brainstorming. And to be transparent, I also don't regularly look at OpenTofu RFCs unless somebody asks me to right now. So I think there would need to be some sort of process where you're just asking that either TSC members like do regularly look at all the RFCs, or you're comfortable with asking TSC members to take a look when you need their feedback. So I think that's up to the core team deciding like what exactly is the process you prefer for getting TSC feedback on RFCs.
I don't think we need a super rigid process. I think there's definitely situations where I've raised RSCs lately and asked for community members to go and put some feedback on it. Maybe I should just ping the TSC as well and just say, can you guys put some eyes on this? There's 2 weeks between TSC meetings, and we don't have to have an action by the next TSC meeting, but I definitely think we should be engaging in those RFCs where possible.
Quick one. So like there's lots of things like can hit up, like lots of RFCs, etc. So maybe can we add a label that like some RFCs like ready for like TSC review or something? At least we can sort them by label, and I can constantly have this list in front of me and like.
Yeah, I don't think we have one for the pull request, Christian.
So
You can search by RFC.
I'm just going to pick on your RFC because it's the first on the list. What we could do is we could request review from OpenTofu Technical Steering Committee, just as a way of doing a ping on GitHub.
Can you then filter pull request by whoever requests you? Because like as far as I remember, it just sends like email notification, and that's it. And like I don't know about how do you guys, but like I'm getting like lots of notifications from GitHub.
Yeah. You should be able to do awaiting review from you or your team.
Oh yeah, that will work.
I think maybe we could label them as well. RFC label that already exists. We can go and do that very easily.
Yeah, that will help a lot.
Okay, so we will add that as part of our process. I think once sorry, James.
No, carry on. Go ahead.
I think once an RFC is gaining traction and we're starting to settle around a consensus, we should definitely get. Honestly, we could. Once an RFC is to the point where the conversation is really starting to happen, or even when it's ready for that, we can put the TSC on there, start getting some feedback, and we could always have an action item to remind during these meetings if one is particularly pressing. It's like a last call, if we feel strongly about that.
That's great.
Igor, my current plan is I'm gonna set up like a Slack subscription thing and try to filter it for that label for the OpenTofu. Just be transparent about how I plan to like actually keep up on this.
Yeah. All the same.
So we'll do label RFC on a pull request, just to confirm. And then I'll just do it on this one because this is a fun one.
What will be the name of the label?
Label is RFC.
Okay.
So, for example, I should be able to go to pull requests, reviews awaiting from me or the team, and that's this one right here.
Okay, so this will be the filter, like label RFC and waiting for the reviewer form. Okay, perfect.
Can you do the same for my middleware one, please, Christian?
Yeah. We can do that offline, but
yep.
Yeah, James, you and I can go through the list and do this afterwards.
Sure.
Because it is OpenTofu's repo is a bit of a fire hose.
Yeah. Anything else from any of the other TSC members for the agenda?
So I've got some items, and I'm happy to defer them until the next call if that's the appropriate way to do this. But I do have the TerraGrunt call right before this, so I'm now asking at the end of every call, what integration issues can make it so that TerraGrunt users have a better experience using OpenTofu. I think that's generally a good way to discuss, problems. Would you like me to just put it on the agenda for the next call, or are you fine with me bringing up ad hoc concerns, questions, thoughts here?
I think, at least for this meeting, as we're deciding, I'm happy with just, especially because we have extra time segueing into it. But for next week, we could add an action item for just discuss TerraGrunt integration events that have happened in the past year. That's the wrong word for it, but just have a standing action item to discuss as that kind of dovetails in.
Okay. The specific items I had was one, I wanted to call out that when Terraform introduced ephemeral variables on the Terrarun side, we had to avoid bumping up our officially supported version of Terraform because it introduced a breaking change. So prior to the introduction of ephemeral variables, if you had a stored plan that you applied and the TF-var environment variables that you're setting are not ephemeral variables, Terraform would ignore those values and just do what's in the stored plan. Now, post ephemeral variables in Terraform, that's the breakage. You need to have ephemeral variables in order for TF-vars to avoid to be used at all.
Yep.
How are we planning to handle that in OpenTofu?
That is, so the way we're planning on doing it, and this actually ties into a state encryption issue as well. It was deferred until now. This is code that's being written today, so this is prescient. The plan is to allow any variable to be set using the standard way, the standard mechanisms in OpenTofu, and then do a diff between what has been specified on the command line and through TFRs and environments and what was specified within the plan. So taking a similar approach, as far as we can tell from the external command line, that Terraform has done, with the caveat that there might be some interesting integrations. It should be effectively the same. Watch this space because we do have some caveats with state encryption and how that functions. There's currently an issue in the OpenTofu tracker where if you're trying to use variables with state encryption or static evaluation, there's some interesting touch points because of this.
Turn address. With respect to a locking issue we've had on the Terrarun repo. So currently the Terrarun provider cache server, if you don't know, it's like a feature in Terrarun that lets you basically orchestrate the fetching of providers between multiple OpenTofu runs so that you don't hit cache issues while concurrent access is being done to providers. That's largely not an issue anymore in OpenTofu, but we're planning on supporting the feature, at least in the short term, for older versions of OpenTofu and for users with like NFSs where they're storing their providers there, etc. So right now, Terrarun has to do this really hacky, annoying thing where we manually generate a lock file for users on OpenTofu runs when we use a provider cache server because we can't reliably determine like what hashes to store like before we fetch things. It's complicated. Why we have to manually write things. So my question is there any consideration right now for users to be able to just generate a lock file without downloading providers?
So part of the problem is the data we have in the registry isn't complete for what hashes would be locally. So the reason that Tofu providers lock is so slow, or even init can be slow. Well, init has to download the news, but providers lock downloads binaries and then does a hash of the contents of the zip file, and then that's what it stores in the lock file, which is unfortunate.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Christian, but there is a way to expose the hashes remotely for some providers. Is that right?
So there's the legacy hashes, which is the hash of the zip file itself, but not the contents. So the problem is what the registry has is zipped up providers, and what's locally on disk is this unzipped representation. And so the lock file contains both. But if you're trying to validate the files you have locally, it's only validating against previous hashes you've taken locally, which is unfortunate. And why this process is not ideal.
Well,
one option is we could, there'd be some overhead to this, but we could modify the registry to do this itself and store those hashes. But there's some other issues that kind of dovetail into this. But one thing you're looking for is to, from TerraGrunt, let's say you know all the providers you need ahead of time. You want to be able to say, okay, given this set of providers, I just want to generate a log file.
Mm-hmm.
The more correct solution, I would assume, would be to expose some part of OpenTofu that you could hook into and call code that would effectively simulate OpenTofu doing this. The simpler, stupider way, potentially, would be to just write a required providers block in a temporary directory, run tofu in it, and then steal the log file from there. It's not a great solution, but
Okay. Heard. That makes sense.
Can you raise an issue around that one? Sorry, Yusuf. Sorry to interrupt, because I think that would be helpful for other people to discuss as well. This concept of
Yeah, we will also chime in because like we recently had the same problem of like people just complaining that the runs are slow, and then we did like troubleshooting and tracing, and like number of times we need to like do like init, then plan, and a whole bunch of shit, like number of time with downloading and calculating those hashes, as well as like also like if users done local hash and like on Linux, like on x86 platform, and then we execute it on ARM, it's a shit show. And we would gladly work on this item to like make sure that's like it serves the purpose of like making sure that like the providers are not changed or like secured, etc., and like cached, but like it should not like penalize the performance like it is today. And we also done the same as we done the same as TerraGrunt guys did. We do a lot of like behind the scenes like crazy manipulations just to like avoid those extra downloads and calculations.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So I will create an issue requesting the ability to generate lock files on demand, whether that be through a package that's exposed in the OpenTofu project that providers, that external third parties can hook into to generate lock files on demand, or something on the CLI. Is that capturing the action item that's requested, James? Okay. Last thing. We had an issue open up where and it's very related to what you just said, Christian. So we had an issue where a user was asking whether TerraGrunt would support having OCI module downloads through the Terraform source block. So, we've discussed before whether or not the provider cache server would support provider fetching. And we've discussed how for the provider, it might actually be that TerraGrunt doesn't really have to do anything because we can just recommend that users don't use the provider cache server when they're using a relatively recent version of OpenTofu, because the concurrency problem's been hypothetically resolved by you. So for module fetching, has OpenTofu exposed a package that third parties should use to download modules via OCI? Should we duplicate that effort on the TerraGrunt side in order to fetch modules via OCI? How would you like to proceed on that?
that is a good question. To be perfectly frank, I keep coming back to and I know there's a variety of opinions on this. This is my own opinion, not speaking as an authority at this point, but I keep coming back to it's annoying that OpenTofu has the majority of its code in an internal package. Because it would be really nice if we didn't have to vendor stuff everywhere or try and replicate logic in 20 different places. Long term, it'd be nice if a lot of OpenTofu turned into libraries, but that is a long-term effort that we're just starting to pick away at now. There's some ongoing discussions about potentially renaming the internal package to unstable, which would mean that Go would allow you to import OpenTofu code in other projects, so you wouldn't have to go through all the hoops of vendoring. We're also looking at surgically breaking up pieces that individual companies are like, this would be really nice to not live in OpenTofu core, and they're willing to spend some resources to make that happen. Speaking of ongoing RFCs, that's part of the conversation around exposing a better interface to modules from a library outside of OpenTofu. James just posted the issue for reference. So
This is for
Spacelift
providing
is,
small modules, but yeah.
but it's the same general idea of this is something that other organizations want to use and have either vendored or hacked their way around multiple times in the past. And if we get a push of support from those organizations, we could potentially prioritize breaking stuff out, but like prioritize the work of breaking things out into modules, or sorry, into Go packages, that's either within OpenTofu or outside of OpenTofu, to help smooth this out. So that's sort of an ongoing conversation that we're figuring out how to have. That provides some clarity.
Okay. And I could search through the issues. I'm sorry, it just occurred to me. But same question for HCL functions. How does the team want to handle accessibility of that?
It's kind of the same thing. The nice thing is at this point, we're not planning on doing major work other than bug fixes to the functions within OpenTofu, at least from a maintainer perspective, with the idea that provider-defined functions will be the way that happens in the future. The existing built-in functions, would be fairly easy to break out into its own library. They're relatively standalone. The only interesting thing is if TerraGrunt wanted to support provider-defined functions, that's a whole other ball of interesting. But if we expose the unstable package, you could pick and choose the parts you wanted to reuse. So this is it's all effectively the same conversation we've been kind of dancing around having for the past year.
Let's definitely have this conversation on the GitHub issues, though, about this, because lots of people have lots of very valid opinions both ways, and we need to gather all that data publicly to discuss our options about what we need. Yeah.
So if we have a flood of issues with a flood of support to take actions on this, I think that'll help. Help us both as maintainers and the TSC decide how we want to proceed there once we have all that context.
Okay, so just to be clear, we'll continue the conversation and issue, but regarding like the design decision of like what I should be requesting so that it doesn't make your lives harder, like you're open to an issue for like generally exposing functionality via an unstable package or vendored things, and it's going to be vague, but it's a placeholder for the conversation.
Yep.
I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think describe the functionality that's within OpenTofu core that you would like to use in other applications today, and then we can discuss the individual solutions.
Okay. Sounds good.
Rishabh, it looks like you've got a quick question.
Hello. Yes, just had a wee one. It was about the registry update workflows, and I'm sure you've seen it way more than I have, but more often than not, we tend to see community members requesting, hey, my package is out of date and such. And more often than not, it's just GitHub Actions is stuck, or it's missed something or other. And I think this isn't new, and also this isn't easy to resolve, because it's just we're pushing GitHub to its limits as far as what it can do. But I was wondering, if that isn't possible, is it possible to at least add some sort of monitoring, like a heartbeat monitoring check, which it's not a real-time thing, it's just that if it misses 2 times in a row, you get a notification rather than waiting for a community member to bring it up ad hoc on Slack.
Have good news. James is actively working on this today.
Woo!
Yeah,
the monitoring.
I'm going to steal the screen sharing. Share Slack super quick. We have set up some Slack alerts that are going to ping me personally.
Oh no!
We actually found two issues that have 2 runs that have been blocked for months. That I can't cancel and have had to raise GitHub tickets about. So,
Are you going to get charged for that?
no, thankfully the runs are just in a state where we split out our runs into multiple subsections and then collate all of the data, and it's
Right.
just the collation part that's not started.
Right.
Also, we don't pay for any of our actions as a public project. GitHub
Gotcha.
has
Gotcha.
for that. So yes, I am adding monitoring for. So I've got monitoring in place for registry, making sure that anytime the registry stuff fails, that it notifies us. And I am currently in the middle of writing, like I've got another half an hour of writing monitoring for every one of the forked Terraform providers to make sure that all of the syncing and building stays in place. I'm writing it as a Cloudflare worker. I won't be open sourcing this just because I vibe coded it and it's super quick and hacky. But I wanted it separate from GitHub Actions completely. I assume that if GitHub Actions are down, I can't just go and add a Slack action to the end of my GitHub Actions were on error. So, yeah.
Good shout. That's brilliant to hear. Thank you.
So we will keep opening up GitHub issues, but they have race conditions somewhere deep in the parallelism code, and they don't seem to want to engage with us on that. So it is what it is. All right. If that is all, I think we could wrap up here for today.
Does anyone have anything else they want to discuss just in case? No?
Basic thank you for everybody reaching out on my behalf for Azure things. I really do appreciate it.
No problem. I did get an Azure expert to review your code, and I'm still looking to get... Actually, sorry, super quick. To test your Azure backend, Christian pitched an idea to me, and I don't know if he pitched it to you as well, about Azure Stack, that you can run Azure Stack inside Azure. He found a YouTube video of some guy doing it. So you use Azure Cloud to host Azure Stack, and then you can authenticate against that. If that is the case, maybe what we'll do is we'll attach one of our credit cards, and we can play around with hosting Azure Stack inside Azure and get you an instance.
Send me that video as soon as you can, please.
Yeah.
Will do.
Okay. I think that's everything for today.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day, week, and see you next time.
All right. Thank you. I'll have the notes up shortly. But
Krista, did you want to grab Yusuf at the end, or is it gone?
nope, he's gone. Well, we can reach out to him separately.
Do you need me?
Nope.
Okay.
We're still being recorded too. Bye.
Oh, goodbye, YouTube.
Bye, James.